Hello and welcome back to Bigfoot Lake. Tonight we have two Bigfoot encounters to share. One from the state of Illinois and the second one will be from the state of California. So with that being said, pull up a stump, sit back and get comfortable as we dive into our first Bigfoot encounter from the state of Illinois. I live near Lincoln, Illinois. It's pretty centrally located in central Illinois. It's 30 miles from the state capital, Springfield, and 35 miles each from Bloomington, Peoria, and Decatur. It has a population of about 12,000 people. I am now 50 years old, but when I was a young boy, me and my family had an encounter with the Salt Creek Monster. If you live in central Illinois, that's pronounced crick, not creek. At that time we lived out in the country, less than a quarter of a mile from Salt Creek. This was 2 miles outside an extremely small village of Kenny, Illinois. My mother witnessed it cross the road right before the bridge that crossed Salt Creek. My brothers had been down there night fishing and placed out night lines. My mom drove down to the bridge to get the boys and to tell them to get back up to the house. It was almost 10 p.m. and they weren't going to be allowed to stay out there all night. One of my brothers told my mom that they had seen Bigfoot. Her, not believing them, told them, "Well, you two boys get up in the car and come on home." They told her they had to gather their fishing poles and gear and to please wait while they went and got it, and they would walk back up to the house. She agreed and waited while they did that, and they started back down the road. One of my brothers was on foot and the other was on his bike. As they took off, she drove toward the bridge to turn around on a little gravel drive right before the bridge. She had her driver's side window down. As she got to that drive, a horrible smell of garbage mixed with rotten sewage water, it practically smacked her in the face through the window. In the headlights, there was a 6-foot-tall, man-shaped thing. It crossed in the headlights from one side of the road to the other. It was light gray and completely hair covered. It looked directly at the car as it passed by. She said she'll never forget those glowing yellow eyes. She said she had the hair on her arms, neck, and head all standing on end, and she's never felt that scared since. She turned onto the drive on the right side of the road and slammed the gear shift into reversed, quickly doing a 3-point turn to go back away from the bridge and back up the road towards the house. As she went towards the house, this thing was running down the road. It was a full moon that night, and the boys had been looking back as they went to see where Mom was, and they saw this huge, muscular, man-shaped thing running in their direction. They later said they looked back because this thing must have weighed a lot, because they felt it running on the paved country road well before they saw it. My brother that was on foot was scared so bad that he passed my other brother on his bicycle running. Mom was freaked out because it looked like it was going after her two boys. She swerved over at the creature and it jumped off the right side of the road down 15 feet into the deep ditch and let out a blood-curdling scream. Everyone got back up to the house and quickly got into the house. They locked all the doors and windows. They later said they could hear it walking around the house. It was thudding into the ground and breathing loudly as it went by windows. My sister and her best friend were sleeping out in a camper that fit into the bed of a pickup truck. they heard something walk up to the camper and circle it 5 to 6 times. They could hear deep, heavy breathing, and the dog that was scared of nothing was under the truck whining. It slapped the side of the camper and rattled the doorknob. Though the two girls stayed completely still and even held their breath. They were trying to be so quiet. After what seemed like forever, but in reality was probably just a few minutes, they finally heard whatever it was, something, thud off in the direction of Salt Creek. Sometime later, they heard something off in the distance, in the same direction. They heard the thing that only moments before had been circling their camper let out a huge screech. So that is the conclusion of our first encounter, and that's from the state of Illinois. So that is an encounter with the Salt Creek monster. You ever hear that one? Let me know in the comments. So, with our first encounter concluded, let's move right into our second encounter of the night. This one goes back to 1978 in the state of California. I've only shared this experience with family and friends, but I finally decided to share it with others. This needs some introduction in order for the reader to understand the geographical area and circumstances of the sighting. This sighting caused events immediately thereafter, which I have also included. Big Sur is a mountainous area in south central California, situated on the edge of the Los Padres National Forest, which is almost 3,000 square miles large. And it's overlooking the Pacific Ocean on the western side. 3 friends and myself, ranging from 16 to 18 years old, who lived in nearby Salinas, had planned on driving to a secluded spot in Big Sur that we called the top of the world. This particular area of Big Sur wasn't frequented by people except for some occasional vehicle traffic from locals or the rare tourist or hiker during the day, and at nighttime there were no humans around. At night there was of course critters, bobcat, fox, and even the occasional mountain lion. There were no people, no cops. It was a perfect location for 4 party animals. We drove down the Pacific Coast Highway and turned off on the Old Coast Road, which winds up into the mountains. The Old Coast Road is hard-packed dirt road and formerly primary route in and out of Big Sur prior to the construction of the Bixby Bridge. Our spot, the top of the world, was right off and above the dirt road with an amazing view of the Pacific Ocean. The spot was directly accessible from the old dirt road, which had steep cliffs, one on one side, and on the other a very deep ravine with the Bixby Creek or the Little Sur River, I don't remember, running through it. Well, the party never even really got started because of the events I will now describe. I might add that the events of this night are burned into my memory. It was almost traumatic. With the exception of some exact conversation, I remember everything like it was yesterday. Steve parked his mom's Chevy Vega at the base of the incline leading to our spot, grabbed some beers out of the hatchback, which we left open, and walked halfway up the very steep incline. The distance between where Steve's car was parked and the top of the hill was maybe about 30 yards. What happened next all took place in a matter of a few seconds, but it seemed like an eternity to me. We were sitting next to each other in a row, facing the Pacific Ocean. Behind us was the crest of the hill about 15 yards up. Beyond that, the dark and foreboding forest. We were looking out at the Pacific, talking a little and just taking in the beautiful view while sipping our beers. We got quiet and maybe a bit reflective. I know I did. It was beautiful. At one point, in the midst of the silence, something weird happened. Later, when all this was over, we talked about this strange feeling that none of us had ever had experienced. What happened was this. All of a sudden, we all looked at each other, and without speaking a word, as if every one of us was receiving an unspoken message, or intuitive response to nature or a gut feeling, we simultaneously looked around behind us at the top of the hill, and this is what we saw. There, at the top, not 15 yards away, was a creature. It was simply standing there, observing us. I will try my best to describe what we saw, despite the fact that it was almost midnight, which added to the creep factor, and our eyes were already well acclimated to darkness by then. This being was not human. That I know for sure. It just stood there, completely upright, arms to the side, facing in our direction. Whether or not it was looking at us, I couldn't tell, because unfortunately, due to lighting conditions and the angle, I guess, I saw only the outline of a head and body. The very hairy head and body that was dark in color. No facial features that I can remember, but there was very long hair or fur flowing down from the head, but there was an opening where a face must have been. All I saw was darkness between the hair on the head. No eyes or other facial features. The hair seemed to flow down and mix with the rest of the hairy body. I distinctly remember the arms. They were long but seemed to fit the size of the body. I don't recall them being overly long like an ape, but they also had long flowing hair, as did the torso and the legs. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, but that could have been because we were looking up at it. It was also very wide. It gave me the impression of great strength. It made absolutely no sound. To be fair, I soaked all of this information up in probably about 1 or 2 seconds. Reason being, an immediate feeling of fight or flight kicked in as soon as we turned and saw this creature. Anyone that's been in combat or other life or death situations knows what I mean with fight or flight. Fight wasn't an option, obviously. So we did, once again simultaneously, what most humans would have done. Get the F out of Dodge. We ran. I stumbled and fell because of the steep incline, and the guys made it to the car before me. I didn't even try to get in. Rather, I simply jumped into the open hatchback. Steve started the Vega and gunned it. We only got 2 corners away from the creature before Steve lost control, and we went sliding over the side of a cliff. Thankfully, the first 20 yards of the drop was fairly gradual and was overgrown with thick underbrush that slowed the car to a stop before dropping off the steep cliff and into the creek below. We all climbed out, thanking our luck, and climbed back up to the road. Now, we had a choice to make. Walking back in the direction we came would only be 3 miles or so back to Highway 1. That's the Pacific Coast Highway. But that direction would also take us by the last place we saw the creature. The unanimous decision was to walk the other direction, which was 5 times as long to reach the highway. That's how scared we were. It took hours, but we made it, alive and healthy, and with a story we could share with friends and family for the rest of our lives. So that is the conclusion of our second encounter, and that is from the state of California near Big Sur in 1978. So what do you guys think of that encounter? That peaceful night up on the overlook, and you see this huge creature up on the hill behind you, only 15 yards away, just observing you. What would your reaction to that be? Would it be that fight or flight, like these 16 to 18 year olds? I think that would be a pretty common thing to do. It should be just to get out of there. So let me know what you guys think of these two encounters. The first from the state of Illinois, and that would have been the Salt Creek Monster, and this second one in Big Sur, California. Appreciate you guys' comments, and if you're not, please take a moment and hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, I would appreciate that very much. We're trying to grow the channel and somehow figure out this YouTube algorithm thing, so yeah, hit that subscribe as well. We would appreciate it very much. So thanks for stopping by tonight and listening to the encounters, and we hope to see you all again soon, and have a great night. See you on the next.